your tongue, just leave it away, skip it, skip it. This means that you need to make sure that your energy just divided well throughout your 20 minutes or 30 minutes interpretation. Otherwise, you will lose concentration and you will find yourself just stopped and you're not able to talk or to say a single word.
Yes, it happens a lot.
Yes. Yes.
And it was a catastrophe, by the way.
It is because, simultaneous, briefly, simultaneous is all about one thing: to make sure that your interpretation knows no pause unless you're a speaker pause. So you can imagine if there is a word or an expression or a terminology, whatever, you feel that you know what, I know that word, it just just like it was on the tip of my tongue, but just forget about it, leave it, do not exert any kind of effort on that single word, just leave it. Right? So if I left it, what will be the case? If you're gonna leave that word, you have lots of other tricks that you can do. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it. Yeah, we're gonna talk about this kind of tricks. We're gonna talk about the interpreter toolkit, or the tricks that you can do in these kind of cases that actually works like 90% of the cases. But again, we need to understand the process. When you understand that this process requires that you should work on your short-term memory, because as we all know that this group of terminologies or expressions or words, they usually work on our long-term memory, and that's why it takes us a while to bring them back from our long memory into our short-term memory. So this kind of time that may take us a couple minutes or 3 minutes, etc., it's not compatible in the simultaneous interpretation, because simultaneous interpretation just works on the short-term memory. Okay? So this means that we have limited time, that we have limited capacity of memorizing, and that's why we need to again work on economizing our effort and work on, as we said at the very beginning, memory enhancement. How can I enhance my memory? Now, after understanding the process and how it is really sophisticated and how it's really, takes time and so on. We need to make kind of like updating to the data that we have in our memory. So if you're gonna think, for example, that your body has different kind of muscles, yes? If we're gonna talk about, for example, a bodybuilder, if that bodybuilder just left his exercises like a week or two, you're gonna find that his muscles are not the same. Okay, same thing applies for your brain. Your brain is also a muscle. If you're not mastering exercises on daily basis for your mind, you will have an issue, and a big issue, with your memorizing capacity. So this means that in order for me to make sure that I am usually enhancing my memory, is that I need to work, let's say, on daily basis on having this kind of prompt to the active memory. We need to try to have kind of like reading, for example. So in daily basis, I'm going to read a specific topic or a specific passage or a specific paragraph or a specific, whatever. So reading and listening on daily basis for both of your source and target languages will work on two things. Will work on activating your mind, be so active and so capable to easily bringing back your data that were stored in your long-term memory, and to be quickly recycled and again, to be at the top of your short memory. And at the same time, you will have a kind of like linkage between the term and the context. So when you're gonna have a kind of a link for a term with a specific context or with a specific flashcard, for example, this will be also easier for you to memorize. I will talk about a personal issue that I have. I usually get confused when we talk about north and south. Okay, so when I just find a speaker saying south or north, I start to get confused. Which one of them is the Ganub? Which one of them is the Shamal? Right? So for me, to make sure that I'm not gonna go through this kind of, memorizing hassle in my interpretation, I have wrote a flashcard. What's a flashcard? Kind of like, an image for the north and the south, and I started to, my eyes like captures this picture. So once I start to have someone say north or south, I just have this kind of picture right away in front of my eyes with the exact direction of the north and the south on the picture, and then I start to right away interpret very correctly without any hesitation. You see? So the kind of flashcards, or the kind of the link of the word with a context, those are very effective tools for you to work on enhancing your memory. So for example, rather than memorizing a very hard word for you, just avoid the word and try to put it into a certain situation, or to put it into a certain context, and try to memorize the context itself. This will help you quite easier to bring the exact meaning or the exact definition of that term without having this kind of hassle of memorizing. You follow? You follow?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, nice. Also, there is a kind of application, but I think it's only applicable to iPhones. It's called Biscuit. You may try to find.
Again,
I'm not sure.
again.
Biscuit. I'm not sure if it's applicable for Android phones as well or not, but anyways, it's a kind of application that has sort of like flashcards, okay, that usually send you notifications for the flashcards that you haven't used for a while. It's like, like sending you, what we call it, they sending you like notification that helping you to get back to the very recent used terminology, and the other one that you haven't used for quite a long time. So it's a kind of like, application helping you to have active memory rather than the passive memory. Yeah, so far so good.
Yes, exactly. You have just proposed two techniques to make daily practices, like reading and listening, and an iPhone application. Am I on the right track? Yes.
Yeah. And I also mentioned that it's very important to find a link for the word with a certain context. So rather than just memorizing the words or the terms solely, just try to put it into a context or into kind of a story that gonna make a lot of sense for you and quite easier for you to interpret when it comes into the interpretation. I mainly talk about the kind of words that for sure differ from anyone, from me to you to anyone else. But this kind of link, when you make a link between that hard word for me or this word that I do not feel like I like this word or so on. But once you just can find a kind of link for this word and a certain context, that will be easier for your mind to memorize the exact interpretation of that word. And the other thing we said is to have a kind of flashcards. So for example, like I just mentioned about the north and the south, rather than starting to memorize what was the south, what was the north, you can just easily have a flashcard, have like a picture, like make your eyes capture this definition or this term or this expression with a certain image. So once you're gonna have this word into your event, you will easily remember, or your eyes will bring this kind of image in front of you, and you will be having very easier interpretation to that specific term. Okay. I think number 2 also we talked about, which is the short-term memory, as we said, that you need to work on the active memory. So you need to have your short memory usually up and running. And here we come with the linking words with context ability, which means, as we all know, that each word could be having lots of meanings based on the domain or based on, the scope or the field, etc. So the ability for you to link the specific meaning with its appropriate context, this kind of ability is also one of the very important pre-qualifications for the interpreter. And I would say that this maybe takes us to the previous question when we were saying that is it important for you to be going through a translation first? So I think that this may also answer that question, because yes, this kind of ability to pick up and choose which kind of meaning is really compatible or suitable to that domain, this is kind of ability, you're not going to be able to get it easily without going through the translation field first. Okay, and then comes the listening skills. So for you to be an interpreter, you should be working very effectively on your listening skills, because as we mentioned, it's not just about listening to someone. No, you actually listen to someone and you understand what he says, and then you put what you understood from what he said into the target language. So this means that your ears should be quite familiar with your pair of language, and you may even gonna go through different accents. You need to listen to different accents. So for your ears to be aware of the different accents and the different, speakers' pitch and pace and tone. So this will give you huge skills than the other interpreters, the other interpreters who does not really pay too much attention to listening. And then comes the context comprehension. So for you as an interpreter, you should also have this kind of understanding, not just listening, as we said, not just listening, but also understanding full comprehension for the context, the underlying meaning, not just the service meaning. So if someone gonna say just a kind of an expression, but he means something different, so you as an interpreter should be aware that he actually means something different, because you were not gonna say just the message he just mentioned. You're gonna say it in a way also conveying the underlying meaning that he wanted to convey through his message. So you need to have full comprehension capacity. How would you be able to have this kind of skill? Again, as we said, throughout the practice daily for reading and listening.
Yes.
And then comes the speaking fluency. This is very interesting point for me, because I find that I face some interpreters. They are very good interpreters. However, they just do not have this kind of fluency, or even we can say, as number 7 states, the phonetics. So they either pronounce wrongly, which is not suitable at all, not compatible at all, and they do not have this kind of a smooth and fluency in speaking. So you need to train yourself very well, that once you speak, you have fluency, you have mastering for the phonetics, that no one could say that, you just say something wrong, or you just pose, because this is not compatible. If you're going to be an interpreter, you should be speaking Arabic exactly as you speak in English. And if you have different pair of languages, so again, you should be speaking both languages on the same exact level. Otherwise, believe me or not, you're not going to be compatible enough to be in that field, and you're not going to be having lots of assigned tasks or assigned events to you, and so on. Also, for the interpreter to be pre-qualified, he should be aware of the news on the service. He should be aware of the updates every now and then. So you should listen to the news every now and then, not just the news. You should be aware of different domains, just to check on the recent updates on different domains. This is very important. And again, we're gonna say that this also happens through what? Through the reading, the daily reading. And for sure to be knowledgeable, because as we said at the very beginning of the session, that the interpreter should be aware of at least something about everything. So even if you are an interpreter specialized in a specific domain, it does not actually mean that you should be just aware of that domain and that's it. No. You should be aware of at least somehow some part of the other domains. Because you as an interpreter, you will have some situations where you find yourself interface into different domains that you may have, have never come through before. So to be able to interpret those kind of domains, this means that you should be having at least good database in your mind for different domains as well. And then the last thing, which is the self-confident. Why did I put it at the end? Because actually self-confident, if you're going to have all of the other 9 pre-qualifications, you will be self-confident. Otherwise, you wouldn't be. So self-confident, very important and very fundamental as well. If you have those kind of, pre-qualifications, but you do not have self-confidence, you cannot ever go into simultaneous interpretation or even consecutive interpretation. You may just try for a consecutive for just like 10 minutes or so, and you're gonna stop, and your performance even gonna be that good. So for you to be an interpreter, a qualified interpreter, you have to be a self-confident interpreter. How can you be a self-confident interpreter? To make sure that you have the other 9 pre-qualifications. Is it that kind of like sophisticated process? It's not sophisticated. It is hard. It is hard. However, it is doable. And how it is doable, again, as we said, to work on daily basis. It's an ongoing process. To work on daily basis, it's an ongoing process for you, even if you are a very professional simultaneous interpreter, accredited and certified and all of these things. If you're not having an ongoing process for your memory enhancement and for making this kind of memorizing for the short memory and for linking, usually work on linking the words with the exact context and all that stuff, you will never be a self-confident interpreter. Okay?
Yes.
I have a question again.
Please, go ahead.
Back to speaking fluency. I have problem with the Arabic language. So how can I speak Arabic language fluently and perfectly?
The same thing in what we said in English, it just applies into Arabic, and it also applies in French or any other spoken language. So for you to be able to have fluency for speaking, you need to, again, work on 2 things together on daily basis: reading and listening. When you listen, you're not just listening for the sake of listening. You actually listen for the sake of listening, understanding, and imitating. Imitating means that you're repeating what's being said in the same exact tone, the same exact pronunciation. So by this way, you'll be able to train your ears to listen well, and at the same time, you'll be able to break the ice with yourself, to start to have self-confidence and to start to have fluency on your tongue, to get these kind of, tongue slips, to get it down. So what we say in English just applies in the same exact way in Arabic. So daily basis reading and listening to Arabic and English context and, speeches will take you, into totally different level. Especially when we talk about Arabic, because Arabic, when we talk about interpretation, it's totally different from the slang language, because interpretation, most of the time, when you interpret into Arabic, you use, there's no place for the slang language. Unless we're talking about something like media, for example, or like a cinema conference, for example. Maybe this is just the only field that you may interpret into slang Arabic. Otherwise, no. So how can you get this exact Arabic language? It's via the following on the news, whether the spoken news or the written news, whatever you like, and also through reading books. Quran for sure. I would also recommend, because the exact language of Quran helps you way long with your Arabic language. So, have that answered your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, yo. All right, guys. So far so good. Are you all following?
Yes. Are you going to make it before 11:30? Because I do have other commitments.
Yeah, I think. I mean, this actually was the last slide, the one that we were having now.
Right.
Yeah. So okay. So far, I mean, have any one of you have got any other kind of questions for what we have gone through?
No.
I mean, questions related to what we have just mentioned throughout the session. If any one of you has questions, please go ahead. If no, so let me just confirm that as we have agreed that on daily basis, we need to work on the listening skills, the speaking fluency, and the memory enhancement, right? So since now you are all into this interpretation course, we need you to start right away from tomorrow. I need each and every single one of you to start to apply on his own, mood. I mean, whatever mood that you'd like to do, just do it the way you want. But at least I need you to have, I need you to have a kind of exercise to your, speaking and listening skills, and also in the memory enhancement. There is also one of the things that I want to mention just before we go. I would like you as well to try to start to make interpretation, but not actual interpretation. I mean, to start to have a kind of interpretation exercise, which is going to be in 3 steps. The first step is you're going to have shadowing. So you're going to bring any kind of speech, any speech that you want in English and in Arabic. And you're going to do shadowing. Shadowing means that you're going to repeat the same exact thing